Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Denis Grégoire. I'm a professor of entrepreneurship and innovation at HEC Montreal in Canada.
My name is Anna Terval. I'm a professor of technology and innovation management at the Imperial College Business School in London.
And together, we're happy to briefly introduce the AMJ editorial that we co-wrote together with Laura Little, Sekou Beramis, Reddy Kota, and Mark Gruber on the topic of mobilizing new sources of data. Now, Anna, tell me, why did we think it was important to write this editorial in 2024, 2025?
Thank you, Denny. That's a great question. So as an editorial team at AMJ, we are now 2.5 years in, and I think we have made a few observations. And certainly the view amongst the authors of this piece was that sometimes we'd love to see a greater sense of adventure. As so sometimes there's a tendency of scholars submitting their work to AMJ to rely on safe data sets and safe types of data sources that have been previously used, perhaps at the expense of maybe some more adventurous choices that might have untapped potential that we don't really leverage at this point in the journal. So to some extent, this paper is a call to action to try and be more adventurous in the type of data that we might use. And 24, 25, I think is a good time for this because I think the technology developments that we are seeing around us open up a lot of opportunities for types of data that we have not conventionally used. So, Denis, what type of data do you think are particularly suitable to be untapped in AMJ?
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned technology because one of the primary drivers of new data sources that we discuss in the editorial has to do with digital technologies whose very operations necessarily imply the capture or the generation of new data. So at the micro level, we can think of Apple Watches or Aura rings that can be used to provide biometric data. But we've also seen uses of smartphones, localization capabilities, or audio sociometric badges that allow for tracking where people meet in organizations, when they meet, and sometimes can even track the emotional level of their exchanges. At the firm level, we can think of HR-specific chatbots that document the kind of queries that employees make of the organizations. We've seen papers on Glassdoor that mobilize anonymous reviews of organizations. We've seen project management softwares that can track all the email exchanges between team members on a project, and this could generate data that could be used. At even the more macro level, we can think of blockchain technologies that will track what's going on during a process, or the use of satellite data that can map physical transformations to the presence or the activities of organizations. So, in short, there's new technology that is used by organizations that are used in organizations whose very operations automatically capture largest amount of data and that could be used for analysis. Now, what about you, Anna? Have you seen interesting, cool uses of data in your time as an AMJAE?
I certainly share the excitement for some of the examples that you've mentioned. I suppose the only thing I would add is I think the opportunities that are tied to the use of machine learning and AI-based methodologies. So I think these technologies have enabled or are enabling researchers to analyze large bodies of text, of audio or video in ways that were not previously possible, and allows for the measurement of things that perhaps we've always wanted to measure, but we're not able to, at least at scale, because of the technological limitations that we have faced. So I think that is an additional element of, or an additional frontier that I hope researchers submitting their work to AMJ will leverage.
Thank you for sharing these examples, Anna. Now, in this editorial that we co-wrote together, we said that we wanted to give practical, actionable recommendations to interested authors. If you think when you think of all the recommendations we wrote, Anna, is there one that is especially dear to you?
Oh, thank you, Denis. Of course, the first thing I'm going to say is that all three recommendations are equally important. But there's no denying that there is at least one of them that stands out to me as particularly important, and that is to take data context seriously. So I guess when you are doing research with more conventional sources of data that have been previously used, there's just simply less explaining that you have to do to motivate your choice and to provide background as to where the data come from. When you're using more adventurous, exciting, and unusual forms of data, therefore there is more explanation to do to explain where data come from. So let me give you an example. So if you use large unstructured bodies of text as a source of data, for example, for machine learning based methodologies, it is very helpful for the reader and for the reviewer to know about some of the assumptions that go into how these data were compiled and how they were interpreted. So, for example, if you use company reports, well, company reports present one picture of a firm, but not necessarily a comprehensive picture of the firm. And so, for example, firms might mention their competitors in 10K filings, but why would they need to do that? Are there legal requirements to do so? Do firms need to be comprehensive? So asking yourself these types of questions about some of the assumptions that go into how were these data compiled, who was in charge of writing them, what are the type of deliberations that really mattered when these data were compiled. Of course, answers to these questions are really, really informative for the reader to see how the data will allow you to do the things that you're hoping to achieve when you chose to use these data as compared to potential alternatives. So that's the one that's most important to me. What about you, Denis?
Well, I have to go with aligning theory and methods, and of course, this recommendation applies to all submissions to AMJ. But we think that in the context of new submissions that mobilize new types of data, new sources of data, it becomes pretty especially important because we're in the publishing business. As AE, it's never fun when we have authors and reviewers are excited about say the theory of the paper, but they're concerned that the measures don't align, or vice versa. That they're very excited about the new phenomenon and the data that's being brought forth. But then the more they prompt reviewers and authors, the more reviewers prompt authors, they realize that the theorizing might not be at the right level. So you were mentioning large set of data. One of the situations that I've seen as a couple times is situations where uh, someone uses machine learning or some sort of algorithm to classify words or sentences into groups of topics. And as reviewers start prompting the authors, they realize that even if the algorithm comes up with reasons to believe that the groupings of words, the vectors of words are internally consistent and they're distinct from one another, when reviewers start digging deeper into it, they start questioning why it is that the authors ascribe a theoretical meaning to this particular vector or to that particular vector or that particular grouping. Because when you look at the actual words or the sentences, it's not immediately clear why it's this meaning and not that other one. So whenever there's a situation like that, reviewers start having doubts about whether the data really fits the theoretical meaning that we ascribe to it. But again, it could work the other way around where there's very solid evidence that there's an interesting phenomenon here with data that matches. But it's the theory side that the level is not right, or the way that the theory is being used simply does not seem to align with what the real life data seems to be about. So the point here is to encourage authors to proactively engage their readers, the reviewers at first, but eventually all their readers, to make a solid case that this new data really aligns well with the theoretical ideas that are being brought forward. So that's the one recommendation that's dear to me. Um, because again, in the review process, we don't wanna have papers that don't make it because of this kind of misalignment. So summing up and thinking about all this editorial, essentially the main argument, and you said it, Anna, it's about being adventurous. We think that mobilizing new source of data, yes, it's challenging, but it offers interesting opportunities to advance academic understanding of management and organizational phenomenon. And we're lucky at AMJ. We do have a deep pool of expertise within the editorial team, with our methods expert, with our editorial review board members, and with even authors that publish using new data in AMJ. So the way we see it, we are a team of venture capitalists. We are adventurous. We want to spend the effort, the time, the editorial capital to support the original submissions that mobilize data at AMJ. So, Anne, I'll leave you with the final words.
Thank you so much, Denis. So I'll keep it short. I very much agree with uh, AEs being venture capitalists in spirit. So sometimes there's a perception that using existing forms of data is a safer bet. But if you really believe, and I believe, that AEs and reviewers are excited about something that's new and different, we should all embrace being more adventurous in leveraging new sources of data that perhaps have not been used previously or not to a great extent. So go out and find your new and exciting sources of data and be adventurous.